let's talk labels and how important they are and not as we are renaming things, etc. and so forth. One of the things that kind of kept popping up for me, and at first I was like, I'm not going to speak on this, like I don't have enough opinion on it really to speak on it, but it keeps bothering me, so we're now going to talk about it. Anyway, I watched a lovely live all about the term pagan, neo-pagan, Wiccan, neo-Wiccan, and all of these ideas, and about the idea that what once was is now evolved into something that is no longer what it used to be, basically, is the concept. So, if we think about this, the idea that paganism, the olden paganism, clearly, back way in the day, is probably not all that similar, even if they have certain bases that are the same as what is being practiced nowadays, because we just don't have the information available to us to have followed exactly what they did and done. Also, our culture has vastly changed. Some things like sacrifice of either animal and or human, because that might have been a thing, isn't as, looked well upon anymore. Like, that's not a thing we do, because murder. So now a lot of people say, I came across the idea of neo-pagan, basically saying that what we practice now is not the same as old day pagan, so we shouldn't claim it. We should say we are a newer version of this. And the idea of Wicca, there was quote-unquote traditional Wicca, even though Wicca is not all that old, the Gardnerian, Alexandrian, I can speak, version of it, the coven, the in-depth ritual, all of that, with the idea of the high priestess and a priest, and how possibly some people have been posing the idea that if you are an eclectic Wiccan, or you are the type of person who is solitary Wiccan even, who doesn't necessarily follow strictly what that was, you are no longer possibly a Wiccan in the same sense. You would be a neo-Wiccan or a new Wiccan, because what you are doing now is so very vastly different than what was. And while in some senses I think this is really important to make that distinction and that difference, because if we all claim that we are trying to do things verbatim what the people in old did, however long old was ago, that opens us up to a lot of criticism and a lot of scrutiny, I guess is a better word, because people are like, well, based on this historical finding or this historical finding, that is not accurate. If you want to live your life as the old pagans did from the Germanic times, then you need to be doing this, this, and this, and you wouldn't value this at all. And it's like, oh, that can get so nitpicky so quick. And I can see where we're like, no, I don't want to say I'm exactly like them, even if I'm using my basis of how they looked at the world and nature and honored it as part of my practice. But on the other sense, I wonder if, in a way, it also devalues front goers, right? So when I think of people saying like, well, what you're doing is not Wicca, like what you're doing is not old paganism or old witchcraft, like it's not traditional witchcraft. And by that, it's almost an accusatory thing, right? Like what you're doing is less than. What you're doing is some made up mumbo jumbo that you came up with on your own. And it's like, well, we all kind of came up with this on our own. Our paths are supposed to be very personal. I thought that was kind of one of the big benefits of paganism and all of that, was that you get to kind of pick a bit what works well for you. And in some senses that is true. In other senses, there is the idea of like, no, if you went into a Gardnerian coven, like there's a way of doing things, and they have that way for a reason. There are certain traditions that they uphold for a reason. That idea that they're now saying, well, you're not doing what I'm doing, is true. Like, right? Like if someone came up to me and said, oh, so you're Wiccan, you're like Gerald Gardner, I'd be like, no, that's a very like yes, I follow certain things that he put out there. There are a lot of tenets and things that he wrote that influenced other people that I follow. There are like certain structures that I like to do, but that doesn't mean that my practice is like exactly the same as Gardnerian Wicca, hence the reason I have the thing of being an eclectic Wiccan. Some people might look at my practice and think it's too different, it's too separate. And I think that comes into another question of who gets to put the label on who. Because if someone comes up to somebody and says, well, no, I am a Gardnerian Wiccan, but they've not been introduced to any Gardnerian coven, in. They haven't gone through that process. They're like, I'm solitary, but I'm a Gardnerian Wiccan. Like, are they? Like, the group did not initiate you. You didn't do the things that they normally say to do. So a lot of people say, no, that person is invalid. But to what extent do we allow our label to fall on other people putting it on us at the same time, right? The idea that someone, like, if someone took all of the, like, had a full view of everything that was in my practice, what box would they put me in? Is them looking at me, would they even call what I do Wicca? You know, some people might not. Some people, if they hold strictly to the, you know, you have to be of the Gardnerian or the Alexandrian, or like if you're not of one of those coven traditions, then you are not Wiccan, you are something else entirely. That's very interesting to me, is the idea of like, well, who has the right to place the label? And is it a balance? Probably. Everything in life seems to be a bit of a balance of one or the other. And how important are these labels? I've talked before about taking on a label and how important it is, I think, to take one on and also cast it off just as quick. But also that comes into knowing exactly what you are taking on when you do take on a label. Understanding the full concept of what that label holds. If I declared myself a Gardnerian Wiccan, that would be, in a sense, a falsity, because I have not been initiated. I don't know the secrets. I don't know how a coven operates, you know. I have not had that experience at all. So to claim that would be very disingenuous and obviously betray my lack of understanding of what it means to be a Gardnerian Wiccan. So that label would be false in a sense. But, you know, some people could look at me and say, you know, it reaches to the whole like real witch, not a witch thing too. Like, well, if I practice magic in this way, even if it is all down to my intention, does that really, like, some people might look and say, well, you're not a real witch because you don't do this or this or this or this, and that's not good for anybody, I think. Like, you can't rely entirely on outside people putting a label on you, because then you're taking away all personal power in that sense as well, right? Like, people still get to say what they are, because you never have a full visage, one of those words, into someone's life and someone's practice. Like, even what I share here is just a snapshot of my life and what I do magically. And I'm gonna assume that is the same thing for most people on YouTube or on Instagram or any of the social medias. Or even when I go out to like the metaphysical store and talk with other people who are on an alternative spiritual path, what we share is still just a snapshot. So someone can't really gain a full perspective of what our spiritual path is and then label us one thing or another. So it is on us a little bit to take on a personal label. Some people flat out disagree with all labels. They think labels just box people in too much. But I think that is hard then to locate each other, right? It's important to have community and to connect with other people. You need to be able to do that with labels, because you can't find each other without a label. I can't Google witches without someone identifying as a witch too. I can't Google like metaphysical shop. It has that label of a metaphysical shop, so I can Google metaphysical shops in my area, Wiccan covens in my area. I definitely agree with having one. I think it's useful. When you take it on or don't take it on, I think is entirely up to you. But I do wonder about the balance between others putting a label on you and you taking on a label of yourself. What is the difference in that, and how much importance should be placed on you taking it or someone else taking it? What are your thoughts on this? Comment all that down below. Do you feel it's important for others to really agree with the label you've given yourself, or are you kind of the mindset like, no, it's my spirituality, my practice. If everyone has a problem with my label, they can F off. I don't care. Or do you one of those people who is very firmly against labels in general, thinks they're absolutely useless and just too much of a construct and too like much of boxing ourselves in? Anyway, I make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll see you guys next time.